So thank you again, and it's really great to speak to you. I heard a lot of things when I joined in. You wanted to be marine biologists, you want to be underwater explorers. That's really great, because I think I have a feeling that you are going to get some tips, and you might find some of the stuff I say to be very interesting, and perhaps it might change your life. Who knows? Underwater exploration changed my life, so I'm sure it will change your life as well. So I'm going to speak to you about shipwrecks and marine life, right? That's about fish, coral, and all that. I'm just going to show you photos and videos. So I hope it's not going to be boring and you'll find this to be exciting. I'm going to talk about different kinds of animals, underwater animals. Okay, but this presentation is not only about marine life and shipwrecks. It's also going to be about you. So what I want you to do is to quickly get a pen and a paper, because I'm going to ask you some questions, and I just want you to answer them. You don't have to tell me whether you are right or wrong. It's just for yourself. See how many of these questions you can get right, and that will tell you something about yourself as an underwater explorer. Okay, so I'm going to give you 10 seconds, or tell your parents, or just shout out, quickly get some paper and pen so that you can write down your answer, right? So what you need to write down is, you don't need to write down the question. You don't need to write down the answer. Just note down whether you were right or wrong. That's all. And just count up the number of rights at the end of it, right? And let's see how far you scored. Okay, hope you got that. All right, let's start with a question. Okay, there's a small grammar mistake here. What lies at the bottom of the ocean and shakes? Any ideas? Okay, just think about it. Think about the answer. Now I'm going to tell you the answer. It's a nervous wreck. Okay, that's a joke. That's a joke, right? And it's a kind of a lame joke, but I have a good reason to tell you this joke. I will come back to this later on, right? It's just to have some fun at the beginning. So what lies at the bottom of the ocean and shakes? It's a nervous wreck. So here you are, a nervous wreck. It looks very nervous. I will tell you why it looks nervous later on, okay? Right, now another question. What do you think is the most famous shipwreck in the world? I think most of you know about this. I'm pretty sure, because you might have seen the movie, or you must have heard about it. It's a Titanic, right? And here's a picture of a Titanic, the ship sinking in the Atlantic Ocean. And this is an artist drawing of how the ship looks today, right? Now this ship is really deep. It's at 12,000 feet or 4 kilometers deep. It's in cold waters. There's not much life. You have to go in a submarine to have a look at it. You can't dive, it's too deep. So now this is how a wreck might look when it's really deep. And then when you talk about shipwrecks, what most people think is, okay, it's like miserable, gloomy, depressing shipwreck like this, right? But for me, a shipwreck is like this, full of life, color, corals, and fish. And this is what you can experience if you are an underwater explorer, because you are not going to go down as deep as the Titanic. You are going to just dive in some of the shallower wrecks easily, right? And I will tell you how and where, etc. So the answer, if you got it right, if it's Titanic, give yourself 1 point. Okay, so that's number 2 question. Now, a fun question about large animals in the ocean. What is the largest type of ray in the world? Have you seen rays? They are like big bats. So what type of ray is the largest type of ray in the world? If you answered manta ray, then you get 1 point. So there's a small story to this. This manta ray, actually I took this photo when I was in Maldives. It was about 6 in the evening. The sun was going down, and I was just taking photos of the reef, right? Looking down at the reef. I suddenly felt something behind me, like a presence. And I was startled. I thought it must have been a shark or something. I just looked around. I saw this massive manta ray just flying over me. And I took this picture, right? So this is the manta ray. It's the largest ray in the world. And it can grow as big as 7 to 8 meters wingspan. That's huge if you think about it, right? It's way larger than any of you. And a fun fact, any manta ray, like our fingerprint, has a unique identification mark. So I know some of you want to be marine biologists. So if you look at this area, you can see this marks, right, in its belly. And if you look at this manta, you can see manta on the left, the belly marks are different. So scientists actually use these marks to uniquely identify mantas and even give them names. So for example, I have met some mantas, they were called buffalo, then puff. So there are all sorts of names. The scientists actually personalize the names because there's only one unique manta in the world with these markings. Okay, so that's a very interesting thing. And here's a cool selfie. So where the place I went, there were so many mantas to the point where actually the mantas were flapping around me and hitting my face, right? So I could actually take this cool selfie. So how many of you do have a nice cool selfie with some strange animals? So well, anyway, here's one, the manta in the background. So if you answered manta ray, give yourself 1 point for the third question. The largest type of ray in the world is called the giant manta ray or the oceanic manta ray. So the next question, I'm going to show you 4 pictures, right? One by one. I want you to figure out what's happening here. What is this manta ray doing? So here's the first picture, right? It's kind of going up close to the surface. Then it's turning around, coming back down, and then like doing a full loop. Okay, so I'm going to show you all these 4 pictures in the same screen. 1, 2, 3, 4. So what do you think this manta is doing? What is this strange behavior? Is he having fun or is he, what is he doing? It's very strange, right? So if you know the answer, well, great. I will give the answer now. It's feeding. So this is how a manta actually eats. And what does it eat? If you look at the first picture on the left, you can see a little bit of fish and sort of a little bit of blurry, you know, something is going on there, right? So what it's doing is actually scooping this soup of small animals. And what are these small animals? They are called plankton. So they are really, really small, but they are in huge numbers, right? So they are called plankton. And what mantas do is they actually scoop this plankton. And here's another fun fact. Those are the arms which the manta ray has in front of its mouth to scoop off all these nutrients or the plankton that's in the ocean. So mantas are really harmless because for us, it's really harmless. They don't harm us, they don't sting us. They just scoop all these nutrients from the ocean and they eat and they expel the water from these. You can see these openings in their body. The water goes up, right? So it's a beautiful animal and I've seen so many of them. I love manta rays. I'm sure all of you love manta rays. And it's something that as divers, we always hope to see in the ocean. Okay, so what is the world manta, is this manta doing? If you answer feeding for the question number 4, give yourself a point, right? So now we've covered 4 questions. Let's go to the 5th one. Okay, here's another crazy picture. What do you think is this manta doing? This manta did a giant poo on Uncle Dharshana. So I was in the ocean, I was setting my camera. Suddenly there was this cloud of green, something fell over me and a manta flew by. And I was so shocked. It took me a second or 2 to react. And I took this picture when it had moved away. But this is how a manta poos in the ocean. Now, when it comes to poo, you might think, yeah, this is like really dirty stuff. But for the ocean, all these creatures' poo is really valuable because it's nutrients, right? So this falls on the ocean bed, other animals eat it. So it's not so bad, right? And I'm kind of thankful that even though it was a strange experience, I'm really thankful that big animals like cows and horses can't fly. Imagine that, right? What would happen? Something like this would happen if they were able to fly. Okay, so the answer to that, it was give yourself, okay, so the next one, sorry, let me go back a bit. So if you answered correctly, give yourself a point for that question. I think that was the 5th question. Now we are going to the 6th question. Okay, tell me what's going on here or think about it and answer the question. Here you have a fish in the mouth of another fish. So what do you think is going on here? Is the big fish eating the small fish? Or what do you think? Well, this is a bit of a tough question, but if you answer with this, you can give yourself a point. It's called a cleaner fish. So the small blue fish is called a cleaner fish. And it basically has a very important job in the coral reef. It goes into other fishes' mouth and it eats the parasites and dead skin and cleans it up. So it's like a dentist in the coral reef, right? So I took this picture in a shipwreck in Colombo, and this fish can be seen everywhere. So for example, this is an aircraft I found in Pasikuda, underwater crash site. And here also there's a cleaning station. I will explain what a cleaning station is, right? So here you see there's a grouper, which is kind of a large fish. And this small cleaner ass is now going into the grouper's mouth and starting to clean. So you wouldn't believe me, in the ocean, there are places called cleaning stations. And those are places where the fish know where to go to get themselves clean. It's like we go to a petrol shed to get, like petrol in our cars or to clean our cars, so they know where to go. And sometimes it gets so busy that the fish are actually in a queue. It's unbelievable. The fish are actually staying in a queue to get themselves clean. So disciplined, right? I think we can learn from the fish, because I think in Sri Lanka, a lot of the people don't know how to stay in a queue, and this fish can teach us how to stay in a queue. I will show you how they stay in a queue. Now, this is a video. I hope you can see this. REEF, tell me if there's a problem. I'm going to reduce the volume a bit. So these mantas are actually lining up in a queue so that they can go to a cleaning station and get themselves clean. So let's see what happens. Looks like this manta is more interested in me than trying to get itself clean. See how close it approaches. It's very curious. Some of these mantas are so curious. They actually come towards you and check you out. Okay, just to stop you there, I asked you to look at these fins earlier, right? When it was feeding, it had the fins out, but you can see here the fins are rolled in. That's a sign that the manta is ready to clean. And the cleaner fish knows, okay, now the manta is asking me to clean, so it goes in and cleans it. So that's why you can see the mantas, the fins near the mouth are rolled in instead of acting like scoops. Okay, so this is a cleaning station. Right. So if you answered as a cleaner fish, you can give yourself a point to the sixth question. It's a fish cleaning another fish. Now I'm going to show you another video, and I want you to think about, okay, where could these wrecks, now these are all shipwrecks filmed in Sri Lanka, but I want you to think, okay, where can these ships be? Are they from Jaffna? Are they from Trincomalee? Are they from Galle? Are they from MANTA? So just think, right, where they could be. I'm sure the answer is going to surprise you. So you see these white trees in this shipwreck. We call it black coral. Even though it's white, it's called black coral because it's inside, it's actually a piece of black branch. So that's the propeller of the ship. And then this is a lionfish. I think you know that lionfish can be dangerous because they have a toxic spine. All those fins on the spines on the back have a toxic spike in it. So here I'm going to fast forward a little bit so that we can move on to the next shipwreck. Okay, here you are. A small shipwreck at 45 meters deep, full of barracuda, small barracuda. So this doesn't have sound, so you won't hear any sound. And look at all those colorful corals, and look at all those corals like ferns that are on the top of the shipwreck. Let's move on slightly to the next shipwreck. So now, I think someone asked a question, is it cave diving dangerous? Yeah, so this is not cave diving. This is going into a shipwreck. So similar to cave diving, going into a shipwreck also is extremely dangerous. So if you at any time of your life start diving, please don't go into a shipwreck because it can be really dangerous. I'll tell you why. Now you see, now here I'm going into a cabin, right? It looks very small and things can fall on you. There can be dangerous marine life. There can be pieces of the wreck that can cut you. And you can see there's dust at the bottom. It's not silt. Let me reduce the volume a little bit more so that you hear what I'm saying. And you can easily get lost in a shipwreck, right? So please don't go in a shipwreck. And here's a shipwreck with a front loader. And this one you are seeing right now is one of my favorite shipwrecks. That's a Napoleon grass. It's beautiful blue water here, lots of fish. Yeah, I'm just coming out of shipwreck when I'm met by a lot of bad fish. Okay, so just moving on a little bit, and here another stingray. Now this stingray, unlike the manta ray, can actually sting you. There's a very powerful stinger at the back. Right. Now, the question is, I showed you a couple of shipwrecks. Where in Sri Lanka do you think these shipwrecks were filmed? And, okay, let's see whether you got the correct answer. If you got the correct answer, give yourself a point. All of these shipwrecks were filmed in Colombo. Would you believe that? So in Colombo is actually the best place to dive shipwrecks. So if you are an underwater explorer, there's no better place than Colombo to dive. And I'm sure most of you are living close to Colombo or around the suburbs. So you don't necessarily have to go to Galle or to Trinco or to Untitled to dive. There's plenty of diving available in Colombo. Would you believe that? Amazing, right? These are some of the shipwrecks in Colombo. And these small fishes are called glassfish, and they are just covering the whole reef. So shipwrecks are really important for marine life because it provides them with a home, right? The fish come and lay eggs there. The juvenile fish or the young fish, they grow in the shipwrecks. And in the night, they may even shelter in the shipwrecks. So it's really valuable for us to protect our shipwrecks because they are artificial reefs. It's full of life. Even though when the ship sinks, it might be, a lifeless hunk of metal. It's soon going to be transformed into this coral reef, artificial reef with coral and marine life. See, look at how beautiful that is. Amazing, right? All in Colombo. Now, a related question. How many shipwrecks do you think there are in Sri Lanka? Whatever the figure in your mind, just think about it. If you answered over 100, well, you can get a point. There are hundreds of shipwrecks. We've identified about 107, and there are definitely about 300, 400 shipwrecks all around. Some of these shipwrecks, it's too deep to dive, right? So diveable shipwrecks, we have about 107, 110. All right, now I'm going to go from shipwrecks to coral reefs. I want to tell you where this coral reef is, and I'm pretty sure you have been there. Where do you think this coral reef is? If you answer Pigeon Island, then you can get a point. Okay, so if you answer Pigeon Island, this is actually Pigeon Island National Park. Now there is some bad news. In a coral reef, if you see this very colorful but very dangerous looking animal with lots of horns on it, please don't touch it, keep away. It's bad news for you as well as the coral reef, because these things, they walk all over the coral reef and they eat the corals, and the corals get completely destroyed. So if there are lots of these creatures on a coral reef, it's very, very bad news. If you see them, please alert the Department of Wildlife. So we have a club called the Sri Lanka Sub-Aqua Club. In 2013, what we did was we had to go and clean out an outbreak of these crown of thorn starfish. So these are, so did I mention this? Yeah, these creatures are called crown of thorns. Crown of thorn starfish, and we had to do a cleanup because there was an outbreak. So this picture I took, which shows me with a spear. We made spears to actually spear out the crown of thorns because we couldn't touch it. And when I was doing it and swimming, there was a shark that came in front of me. So I took this picture. It shows a shark and also another diver with a plastic bucket where we stuffed the crown of thorns. So another fun fact, Pigeon Island is one of the best places to see reef sharks. So if you're snorkeling, you can always guarantee you see a reef shark, and they're harmless. Of course, don't go near a shark, let it be, and it will just swim around doing its own thing, right? Don't go to play with it or touch it, obviously. And here we buried the crown of thorns, 181 of them in Pigeon Island. So we cleaned up the reef and the reef had a chance to recover. So if you answered Pigeon Island for the 9th question, give yourself 1 point. Well done. And now I'm going to show you a very unusual coral reef and ask you where it is. Here it is. So these are called sea fans, right? So the marine biologist among you will be really interested. It's an unusual form of coral. It's quite prevalent, but in Sri Lanka, you find very few instances of these large coral fields with huge sea fans, around 4 feet to 5 feet tall. And this one actually was in Colombo again. And I haven't seen any field like this anywhere else in Sri Lanka, other than the one I have seen in Colombo. And in Colombo, there are 3 sites that I have found. Right, here's an interesting question. How can you find, question number 11, if you find a shipwreck in the bottom of the ocean like this, right? So you are a diver and you are diving around, you find this shipwreck, a mysterious shipwreck. Where did it come from, right? How old is it? How do you find out that information? So guess the answer and let's see whether you can score a point. It's quite simple. If you want to find the identity of a shipwreck, you have to find evidence or you have to find out something that has its name on it. So you have to be an underwater explorer, you have to go in, investigate, you have to find out where the ship came from. And here is an example where I found 2 bells of 2 World War I ships, right? And the bells have the names. So that's one way you can find the names of a shipwreck. And these bells are at the Maritime Archaeology Unit. Now, I think most of you said you wanted to be marine biologists, you wanted to be underwater explorers. Another really interesting job is marine archaeology, to be a marine archaeologist, right? So this is actually the team of Sri Lankan marine archaeologists who are based in Galle, and they are doing some amazing work, right? So it's very interesting work. You have to go and when someone finds a shipwreck, what they do is they go to that shipwreck and they do a lot of work studying it, right? It takes months sometimes. And you know, these guys, they are actually studying a shipwreck that's so old, you won't believe how old it is. 2,000-year-old shipwreck in Godawai. It's one of the oldest shipwrecks in South Asia. And this is the team, most of them are my friends because I work closely with them. And they are doing a really great work studying shipwreck. It's a really interesting job. So I think if any of you are interested in archaeology, why not be a marine archaeologist? Right. So question number 11, if you answered be an underwater explorer and find evidence or to find something in the shipwreck, you can give yourself a point. Right. Really interesting question. Do you think sharks are monsters? I don't think so. I think sharks are just animals living in their own environment. Here is a whale shark, the world's biggest fish. Right? If this whale shark was a monster, it would have eaten this person right here. No, but this person is clearly not stressed and swimming. This person seems to be very proud to be swimming with the whale shark. And that's true. Like divers, the most important thing for a diver is to see a big animal. It's a manta ray or a whale shark or a shark. You are diving days made if you see an animal like that, right? So this is the whale shark. And so I said it's the biggest fish in the world. So one really important thing is when you observe wildlife, right? Maybe it's a marine life like a shark or a manta, or maybe it's land-based life, like maybe it's a deer or a let's say elephant. You should never approach the animal. It's very dangerous to be in the first place, like approach an elephant. But when it comes to marine life, what you do is you just stand your ground and wait. And most of the time, they are so curious that they actually come to you, right? So never chase, let them come to you. And I'll show you a good example of this. This is in a shipwreck in Colombo, and this is a whale shark encounter, right? We see whale sharks in Colombo. I've seen actually my first whale shark I saw in Colombo, and this is the second whale shark I've seen in Colombo. So you can see all of the divers are now swimming behind the whale shark, right? Huffing and puffing, but they can't keep up. Because the whale shark, even though it seems to swim slowly, it's actually swimming quite fast. I decided I'm not going to run after the whale shark, I'm going to be in the same place and look what happened. Did you see that? It wasn't frightened of me because I was staying in the same place. It decided it's going to come and check me out. And it came close to me, right? So that's what you should do. Don't run after marine life or any life. Let them come to you. So I think a few more sharks. Grey reef shark. I think some of you may recognize. One of the common sharks in Sri Lanka, the white tip reef shark. And again, this is a very special encounter. I was in Maldives diving in the night and taking pictures. There were about 30 sharks in the night, right, going around, nurse sharks. And this chap, he came right at me and then knocked my camera. So I took this picture as at the same time he came and his nose, his snout came and rubbed against my camera dome phone. I really love this picture because he looks like a big, like a dog coming and playing, right? So that's called a nurse shark. Called a nurse shark. And now I ask you the question, are sharks monsters? And I said no. Why did I say that? Because if you look at the numbers, about 10 to 12 human beings are killed by sharks. But as humans, we kill 100 million sharks a year. For what? For shark fin soup. Look at the number of sharks that have been killed here. It's really, it's a very, very bad thing to happen. And sharks are so important for our ecology, right? Sharks are the apex predator. Sharks are the one that keeps all other life forms in control. So if we kill off all the sharks, the whole ecosystem is going to go out of balance and it's bad for everyone, including us. So don't go to any place that sells shark fin soup, and please discourage anyone from drinking, having shark fin soup for dinner. It's actually a ridiculous thing to do, killing all the sharks for soup. Okay, getting back to shipwrecks. Here's another question. Do you think we own an aircraft carrier? I think I kind of gave away the answer when I said, let's get back to shipwrecks. Yes, we have an aircraft carrier. It's the HMS Hermes. It was sunk during World War II when the Japanese Navy attacked Sri Lanka, right? That's the actual picture of the aircraft carrier sinking. And this is it underwater. So I took these pictures in Batiklo some time ago. It's in Batiklo. It's one of the deepest shipwrecks in Sri Lanka. And actually, it's the most famous shipwreck in Sri Lanka that everyone in the world knows about. The world's first purpose-built aircraft carrier. This is the propeller. There are still shells in it, in casings. That's what's called the superstructure, or the high point in the shipwreck. So if you, for this question, do we own an aircraft carrier? Answered yes, well, give yourself 1 point. Okay, so I'm now almost done with my questions. I think it's the last question. Do you think jellyfish are dangerous? I think you know the answer to this, right? Yes, jellyfish can be very dangerous. So again, please do not touch jellyfish. And what happens if you jellyfish stings you? What should you put? Vinegar. It's a very good thing to put on yourself, right? Vinegar is the best treatment to immediately put on yourself if you get stung by a jellyfish. But kids, I tell you, please do not touch jellyfish. All right. So a funny picture. This is me with a jellyfish on my head. So I just told you not to touch jellyfish, and I'm putting a jellyfish on my head, right? Please don't try this at home. Well, you shouldn't be having jellyfish at home in the first place. Okay, so regardless of that, if you see a jellyfish, don't touch it. I have been with the ocean for 20 years. I know which jellyfish sting, which don't. And actually, this was to prove a point. Because in 2050, when my friend took this picture of me, there were a series of jellyfish attacks all around Sri Lanka. People are getting stung and bitten, and jellyfish were getting a bad name. Everyone was saying all jellyfish are bad. So as a social media education campaign, I decided to do this, put the jellyfish on my head, just to show people that there are good jellyfish, right? So like human beings, like people, there are good people, bad people, there are good jellyfish and bad jellyfish. All right, so if you said jellyfish, are the jellyfish dangerous? Some are very dangerous. Give yourself a point. So we have completed 14 questions. Let's get along. So in the beginning, I talked about the nervous wreck. So why should a shipwreck feel nervous? Well, it should, because the ocean has so many problems. Right now, this is a shipwreck with lots of fish. Because of human activity, there is huge amount of natural destruction. Right? There is blast fishing. People drop dynamite to kill fish, and the process of dropping dynamite just kills off the whole reef or damages the shipwreck, kills off every type of fish, not the fish that the fisherman is only looking for. There's overfishing, fish nets are getting entangled in the shipwrecks. There's pollution, plastic, oils coming into the ocean. Then illegal salvage, people are breaking shipwrecks to get the metal out. Imagine a fish, right? Hundreds of fish making the shipwreck a home. Someone comes and breaks it for steel or iron. How bad is that? And then sometimes all these big ships that are going around in the ocean, they drop anchors in the wrong place, and a reef or a shipwreck can get completely destroyed. Right? So anchoring is also a problem. So here are some reasons why shipwrecks are nervous. They are shaking. They are lying in the bottom of the ocean and shaking because there's nervous shipwrecks. Nervous wrecks, sorry. And here's a picture of blast fishing, right? So someone had thrown dynamite at this shipwreck in Pasikuda, and the whole seabed was littered with dead fish and not even collected. So for what? They're just killing off more than they want by using illegal fishing techniques. So a lot of people ask me, have you found pressure? What do you think? Do you think I have found pressure? Well, I think I have. And for me, this pressure is this, right? For me, the pressure is being in the ocean, being in nature, being among beautiful corals, beautiful fish, and enjoying an incredible moment with nature. And that's pressure, right? So all of you need to think about, you can't breathe gold, you can't eat silver, right? End of day, all what matters is how much of the environment. If we look after the environment will look after us. If we don't look after the environment is going to kill us. So this is the real treasure that all of us need to protect, absolute magical places in the ocean that we need to look after and also enjoy. Okay, one final question. I think all of you are curious about training. They ask me, do you need training to dive? And I know some of you have already done a try dive, or you've done some basic dive, right? So yes, to dive, you need to do some form of training, whether it's a couple of hours where you can do a try dive to about 6 meters and enjoy the feeling of being underwater. Or you could do the full course for about 4 days and become a junior open water diver. Now I'll explain what that is, right? So the first part on the left takes about half a day. You can go to Unawatu anywhere, just do a very shallow dive. Whereas the second part takes more time. So what are the prerequisites, or what do you need to have before you start diving? So I will ask you 3 questions. Can you swim 200 meters non-stop? Second question, can you tread water? That means that you can float on water, but upright with your head out of the water. Can you float for about 5 minutes? Can you snorkel without a life jacket? If you answered yes to all those 3 questions, well, maybe you are ready for trying diving. Then you could do the junior open water course, which is about 3 to 4 days. And if you are 10 years, you can start doing it, and you can go to 12 meters. Okay, so this is kind of the roadway to diving. If you are thinking of being a marine biologist, if you are thinking of being a marine archaeologist, underwater explorer, maybe even a commercial diver where you go and fix stuff underwater. There's so many things in the world underwater you can do. So if you want more information, I have a YouTube channel called Dive Sri Lanka, and then actually I have my nephew, 10-year nephew, his first few dives. I have documented a small video and it's online, so you can have a look to get idea if you want on that YouTube channel. Have a look with your parents. And then I tell you, go dive and make new friends, like my friend here who agreed to pose for a selfie. We're not really. These fishes are called pilot fish. And here I was coming from a deep dive, and I had stopped. This fish was this fish generally looks for other big fish because it's always accompanying a big fish, right? So it was alone in the ocean. It thought I was a big fish, and it tried to make a friend out of me. And then I was taking, but I took hundreds of pictures before I got this perfect shot where I and the fish were looking at in the same direction. So it looks like this fish came and actually posed. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Go dive, make new friends. And if you need more information, you can write to me at divesrilanka@gmail.com. I'm on Instagram. I have my explorations documented there. And this is my book, Ghost of the Deep. So that's it. Aunt Upekshi, all over to you.
Wow, what an interesting presentation. I'm sure all the kids had such a lovely time, didn't you all? Right. So I know that all of you have been listening in very well and excited to ask so many questions. For a little moment, we muted the chat group, but we're going to open it out now so that all of you can ask these questions. But unfortunately, kids, we can't answer all questions, right? And I am going to select certain questions where I'm going to ask Uncle Dharshana, and he is going to answer this for all of you. But also don't forget, now on what Uncle Dharshana said earlier, he is an experienced diver. He has all the certifications to go diving, right? To go to a mighty depth. So if all of you would like to get involved in diving, you have to make sure, and your parents, your loved ones, your elders will definitely make sure that you will get your license, your diving license for you. So don't forget that. But of course, going snorkeling is a different thing, right? I'm sure most of you have gone snorkeling, and it's a beautiful experience. You can see fish, like Uncle Dharshana said, you know, various reef sharks. I have done that, and it's beautiful. So we will, if you want any other details, like Uncle Dharshana said, please write to him, and I'm sure that he will answer all these amazing questions that comes from you. So are we ready to ask some questions from Uncle Dharshana? Let me see how I can get all these questions and ask. All right. Uncle Dharshana, this is a really good question. Do you think that animal abuse is a big issue in Sri Lanka, and about marine pollution? And what can we do to help?
Well, I think that's a tough question as well. Well, I will talk about the, I think when it comes to animal abuse, I think all of us, it's all up to all of us to do what you can. It's your individual behavior that will at least help out any animal, right, at an individual level. But if you take pollution, I think the very simplest form of pollution, let's talk about plastic and polythene pollution. A lot of people think that all the plastic and the polythene left in the ocean is because people come to the beach and they just litter in the beach, and that's the pollution that's in the ocean. But that's not the case. Everything we buy, right? You go to the supermarket and buy a bottle of plastic, let's say a plastic drink, and we use it and we throw it away. It depends on where it goes. If it's recycled, that's fine. But if it goes to a garbage dump, eventually it always comes back to the ocean. And I've seen rivers of plastic flowing into the ocean from like the River Kalani and all that. So when it comes to pollution, yeah, and the simplest thing is to let's reduce our usage of plastic and polythene. Just a small aspect of it, but it's so big, I can't really cover everything. So I have to give chance to others for questions. I will just say that.
Thank you, Uncle Dharshana. Okay, so we have another question. Is it possible to have your diving course at the age of 14, which I think Uncle Dharshana has already answered? It is possible, I think, for everyone. But the other question is, what are the places in Sri Lanka that we can go diving, and a little bit about the diving seasons in Sri Lanka, please?
Wow, that's a great question. So much information I think in trying to answer that. Okay, so the first and foremost, yes, you can get your license when you're 14 very easily. You can get your license after you're 10 years old. And there are schools, diving schools all around Sri Lanka, right? For example, Colombo has one, Colombo, to go to Una, Hikkadua, Trincomalee, everywhere there are diving schools. So it's very easy for you to go and get your diving license. And generally the seasons are from November to April, it's the Colombo side, or Gaur, Colombo, up to Negombo. And then from April to October, it's the East Coast. So for example, Trinco, Batikro, that side. So there are 2 seasons. But for you who is on the West Coast, you can try and get your license from November to April.
Thank you very much. So we have another question in terms of how many different animals are there in terms of marine mammals and animals underwater, which I'm going to leave to you to answer. And a little bit about the most interesting ones you have seen. And what is the smallest fish in the world as well?
You know, honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. It's such a great question. It's such a tough question. I don't know. I don't know how many species of fish there are. I think there are millions. And the smallest fish, well, I'm sure you can't even see it. It's so small. I talked to you about plankton, right? So that's like small creatures. So if you take any marine animal, it can be really small, microscopic, to huge, like a whale or a whale shark. So, great question, but I'm sorry, I don't really know the answer.
Okay, so how much of underwater life is killed by humans in terms of corals and everything? And yes, so that is also one question that has come our way.
Yeah, so I will put it this way. There is a belief by scientists who think that somewhere around 2050, that most of the fish life in the ocean will die out because of overfishing and other pressures to the marine environment. So you guys might not have fish after 2050. I don't know. It's speculatory, but a lot of scientists are saying it's a possibility. But we do kill huge amounts of fish in the ocean every day. Huge amounts.
Uncle Dharshana, have you seen orcas when you were diving?
Unfortunately, no. That's one thing I haven't seen yet.
Okay. And what is the difference, Uncle Dharshana, between scuba diving and snorkeling? If you can explain it a little bit more, because that's a question that has come in a few times.
Okay. So I think I wish I had my equipment close by. So for snorkeling, you don't need to get a certification like Auntie Pitch said. You just need a mask and like a tube that goes from your mouth, right, over your head. That's a mask and the tube. That's the top part of the snorkel. And then you need fins. And you just swim on the surface of the ocean and you look down, right? So you are not underwater. You are essentially on the surface and looking down. So that's snorkeling. Diving is where you have a tank of air and then you can actually go underwater and spend a lot of time underwater.
Okay, thank you. So here is a funny question and an interesting one. Someone wants to know, Uncle Dharshana, whether you have found gold during your diving expeditions. And we would also like to know, in case you find something valuable, say from hundreds of years ago, what should you and what would you do with it?
Yeah, so first question, no, I haven't found gold or silver or anything like that. As I said, the only treasure I have found is nature. But I think I told you that I found 2 bells and I found several other items which I have used to trace back the origin of the shipwreck or find out where the shipwreck came from. So those have been handed over to the Maritime Archaeological Unit, right? So anything I think valuable you find, it's good if you can report it to the Maritime Archaeological Unit and tell them that you found something like this and give it to them, because that's valuable evidence that proves where the shipwreck came from, and it can actually go to a museum and then people can enjoy that artifact, right? So if you find anything, hand it over.
All right. Okay. Do we have great white sharks in Sri Lanka?
No, we don't have. Great white sharks, if I understand correctly, is in more colder waters. So out of the sharks that are considered dangerous, like the tiger shark, the great white, the mako, the bluefin, there are few sharks, right? Very few sharks that are actually dangerous within the fish, or the oceanic white tip. We don't see great whites. So don't worry about great whites. But even if there's a great white while you're a diver, it will rarely bother you. And most of the time, sharks attack human beings because I believe either they are too sick or old to catch any other fish and they go after us slow humans while we are swimming, not while we are diving. Most of the time, sharks attack people while they swim. And also it's mistaken identity, right? So imagine you're on a surfboard, and you're surfing, the shark is down and the sharks, some of these big sharks like the great white, the favorite food is a seal. So it looks up and it sees you on the surfboard, it thinks, that looks like a seal, right? So then it goes after you and then it bites you. But when it bites you, it realizes, this tastes weird. It's not so tasty because it likes the fatty, the fat layer on the seal. So then it just lets go. So that's why most of the surfers, they get bitten once and they are let go because the shark was, okay, I don't want to eat this. It's not yummy. It's not my food. So we don't have to worry too much about sharks, really.
Okay. All right. So a few more questions. Are there shipwrecks around Sri Lanka which can be seen from the surface of surface basically from a boat or?
Very great question. Yes, actually in Colombo you can see one shipwreck of Kinross in Vanuatu at the reef. There is a famous shipwreck called the Thermopylae Sierra, which is of Mount Rainier. You can see the mast coming out. And if you take a boat and you go near the shipwreck, you can see that the shipwreck from the surface, right? It's actually one of the most popular tourism places in Sri Lanka. Unfortunately, it has been decided to remove the shipwreck for various reasons. So we voiced our opposition, we did a lot of things and tried to stop it, but looks like it's going to be removed. And thereby it's going to destroy a valuable tourism asset for Sri Lanka. And also it's going to destroy a natural coral reef. So unfortunately, it seems to be happening in the background. And we have done everything we can do to stop it. But anyway, to get back to the question, so there are 2 wrecks in Colombo and there are so many other wrecks that are quite shallow. So you take a boat, even in Pasiguda, there's a whole graveyard of shipwrecks in front of the Pasiguda hotels. If you take a boat on a clear day, you can see right down, you can see boilers, engine parts, huge number of ships.
Wow. So Uncle Dharshana, how many ships have you seen underwater? Is a question that has come in as well.
I think maybe about 50, 60, I think.
That's a lot. Do you know what the most poisonous snake is underwater, the sea snake?
Yes. I don't know the exact species, but in Sri Lanka, we have the sea snake. It's called the banded sea crane. It's like a zebra, right, with black and white stripes. And the thing with the sea snakes they are extremely poisonous. They are about 10 times as poisonous as cobra, but they are not aggressive. They are just not going to come after you and bite you because they are interested in finding fish. So don't have to worry about sea snakes unless you go and grab them. They will not bite you. But yes, they are very, very toxic.
Right. It says, sir, what is the largest fish in the verge of extinction? Whether you would know that.
What is the largest fish in the world?
On the verge of extinction.
I can't really think of something. So if you take most of the big fish in the ocean, there are several levels of, I would say, danger. They are called endangered, right? They are called vulnerable. I can't specifically off the top of my head think that a fish is endangered or going to extinction. But if you take, for example, bluefin tuna, sushi is a very popular food all around the world, right? So bluefin tuna is highly sought after. It's very expensive. They are farming bluefin tuna by the millions. So the bluefin tuna stocks might collapse. And I said, scientists think that by around 2050 we will have a collapse in fish stocks. So not only bluefin tuna, there are so many other fish that might go into extinction.
Okay, it says, sir, catching fish from the ocean and selling them to people, is it illegal? And can it be done in a more reasonable manner in terms of breeding fish, etc.?
No, catching fish in the ocean is not illegal. You can catch fish, but you need a license to be a professional fisherman. Alternate ways of breeding fish is there in the world. There are farms that are constructed, so there are ways to actually, but they have their own problems environmentally and how you feed them. So it's actually I think it's an area that all of you are interested in, especially the person who asked that question, to really study. There's a Netflix documentary called Ceasefire. No, sorry. What's that? You remember the documentary? Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't remember properly.
The famous Netflix documentary which talks about the fishing industry, Ceasefire or sea piracy, right? So if you're interested in the fish and their extinction levels and what's going on, I urge you to watch this documentary called Sea Piracy. Watch it with caution because obviously it shows fishing and things like blood, etc. So if you're sensitive, you should watch it. But it's extremely educational and it will give you a point of view on how bad the fishing industry is in the world.
Right. So there are so many questions which are amazing, and I think that our time for questions are also almost running out. But we have a question. Have you found people's bones in shipwrecks?
No, I haven't. Fortunately, no, I haven't.
Okay. All right. I think we've answered, Uncle Dharshana has answered quite a lot of questions, and we've had a very, very interesting session today. So, kids, this is basically a thank you from all of us, Dharshana, from the Wildlife and Nature Protection Society and the Wild Kids Committee for devoting your valuable time and being here this morning. And kids, we do these programs because we want you to learn a lot about nature. We want to see how we can help you learn about nature and how you can help save the country. So that is why Uncle Dharshana was also here today. So thank you once again. And I think kids, how about we, before we get into the next few things, how about all of you just say, I know that you are on mute and you can't say thank you, but how about we do a small wave so that he can see all of you and say thank you very much for your time today, because all of you, I'm sure, learned so much, right?
Thank you.
Okay.
It was great fun to talk to all of you.
All right. So before we stop the program for today, I had a question. Everyone had asked about when the next program is going to be and how all of you can join our society, right? So keep the date free on the 9th of October, right? On the 9th of October at 10:30 a.m., we are going to have our next Wild Kids talk. And that is going to be called Little Eco Warriors. So we are going to talk about how we can get together and save Sri Lanka. A few tips about why plastic is bad, why single-use plastic is bad for us, and how we can teach our parents, and all these things. So I'm not going to talk to you too much about it. The link, the Zoom link and everything will be shared with all of you. Please tell your parents to follow our page on Facebook, right? Please tell your parents. And we will also upload it on our website, okay? So a few things which we want to talk to you about. Who in today's talk would like to be Wild Kids, WNPS, or Wildlife and Nature Protection Society junior members. How many of you want to join? Yes. That's so lovely to hear. It's so nice to know that all of you want to get together and protect Sri Lanka, right? So here's what you do. That piece of paper which you had with you, write this website down, okay? It is www. Once again, it's www.WNPSSL. So that is WNPSSL.org. Okay. All right, I have unmuted you, all of you. So,
Miss, my number again.
you have to all listen. Thank you very much for joining. All of you said thank you very much, Uncle Dharshana. On the 9th of October.
What is the